Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm going to be revealing the new assembly shop tank. This is the Vickers Mk. It is going to be a tier 10 British reward medium tank, available this Thursday, that's the 25th of July, from 5 PM UTC on the European server, and I expect the Asia server and the NA server will get similar times on your local Thursday. The tank is going to cost exactly what the previous assembly shop cost, and there are going to be the same amount of vehicles available for the different regions, so competition will still be high to be able to get those numbers. But in today's video, I'm going to let you know whether this is going to be worth the about $100 to $150 worth of currency, albeit in a variety of forms inside your garage, or whether you should leave this one for other suckers to pick up instead. So before we jump into the gameplay, let's find out a little bit about this brand new British tier 10 reward medium tank. And obviously the best thing to compare it to is the other tier 10 British medium tank in the game, the Centurion Action 10, and also a sniping medium tank, the Leopard. More on that in just a second. So immediately we notice the Vickers has a 105mm caliber gun, like all of the other vehicles in this comparison, with 390 alpha damage, the same as the Centurion Action 10. And you'll notice that pretty much all of its firepower statistics are exactly the same compared to the Centurion Action 10, apart from the ammo capacity, which is significantly less, which kind of sucks considering that the Vickers gets really good HE rounds and you want to take a plethora of ammunition, but even with the reduced amount, you don't really have to worry about running out of shells later on in the battle. But considering that this is a sniper medium tank that gets sniper field mods, unlike the Centurion, which is versatile, you might want to compare this vehicle more towards the Leopard, and it has 30 less alpha damage, worse penetration on its standard rounds by 10mm, but it actually has better shell velocity across the board on its APCR rounds and also on its HE rounds. Its heat are a little slower, but they're still very fast for heat rounds. And I'd say having access to 330 heat is actually probably better than having the 322 APCR pen on the Leopard. Not because you're going to have the same penetration when you factor in that the APCR will go through spaced protection and it will also be able to normalize for 2 degrees, but just to have that capacity to be able to go through really angled surfaces that are thin, but not thin enough to overmatch, because heat can go through up to 85 degrees of angled armor. So all in all, really good news for the Vickers so far. It's got tremendous damage per minute, just like the Centurion Action 10, and good firepower across the board. And the news gets even better when we take a look at the gun handling. 2 seconds aim time, better than the Centurion Action 10, a little bit worse than the Leopard. However, best in class accuracy, 0.27, now makes this the most accurate medium tank in the game and the joint most accurate vehicle in the game, along with the Grilla. However, I know a lot of you will be saying, oh, but the STRV-103B inside the Siege mode is slightly better, but that gets worse when you use the field mod. However, the Vickers has the opportunity to either get more accurate if you choose to lower its damage per minute, or guess less accurate by 5% if you choose to increase its damage per minute because of that sniper field mod. So your choice will be down to you. Personally, I'd focus on the great damage per minute, but more on that in a second. Nevertheless, this is a super satisfying gun to snipe with, and it kind of makes the Leopard's sniping gun just look like a lesser armament. Add on to this better dispersion values when moving than the Leopard, but worse when turning the turret means that this vehicle doesn't really need vertical stabilizers, and I think the equipment slot would be best suited into something else, but again, you do you if you want to have that god tier gun handling. So now onto the mobility. The Vickers goes 55 forwards and 25 backwards. That means this is the fastest tank backwards, the same speed as the Centurion Action 10 going forwards, but remember this one doesn't get the field mod that increases its top speed that the Action 10 has access to, so it will end up being slightly slower and significantly slower than the Leopard. This thing isn't going to bomb it into position nearly as quickly as the Leopard does. However, this vehicle gets better ground resistances than the Leopard and a better power to weight ratio than the Leopard, which allows it to go up slope at a phenomenal rate. So this thing just doesn't really slow down below its top speed limit. Even on soft terrain, this vehicle's nearly, and with good cruise skills, will be able to go up to its top speed. That frees up your driver slots. You don't really need off-road driving, so you can put it into something else instead. Combine that with really good traverse speeds on this tank, especially on the turret, and you are quickly snapping whatever you want to. So all of this good news, unfortunately, completely falls apart when we take a look at the armor and the durability of this vehicle. And that is because it has 60 on the front of the hull and 30 on the side. That's worse than the Leopard, and significantly worse, because now you can't bounce 105mm caliber guns. They can overmatch your side armor, unlike the Leopard, which can only really be overmatched by 106mm caliber guns and larger. Add to this terrible turret armor of 80 at the front and 40 at the side, and when we have a closer look, we notice that the Vickers has just an awful mantler. Everything pretty much that hits this tank goes in. You will bounce the occasional shell off the mantler, but even has a weak point on top, which can be shot over ridge lines, unlike the Leopard. All in all, this makes the Vickers a much worse tank to avoid receiving damage, especially with the roof of the vehicle getting overmatched by all 76mm caliber guns. However, when the Leopard is using its 9 degrees of gun depression, it can actually manage to pull off some ricochets. Just quickly, I forgot to highlight that the Vickers, like the Centurion Action 10, gets amazing gun depression at 10 degrees, which is 1 degree better than the Leopard. So when you also take into account that when the Leopard's using its max 9 degrees of gun depression, the whole of the top of the turret ricochets most of the rounds, you think the Vickers should be even better, right? Because of its 10 degrees. It's just not the case. It just gets absolutely smashed. This thing isn't ricocheting anything at all, hardly ever. When you factor this into the fact that it's not exactly the smallest of targets from the side, a bit like a Leopard, this is going to be a juicy tank for everything to engage. And so, oof, it's a really hard thing for the Vickers to deal with. The Centurion Action 10 is a well-armored medium tank with great side armor that allows you to over-angle and be able to ricochet off when they try and shoot your tracks. The Vickers can't even begin to do that. And for it to have a worse armor than a Leopard, which is already a bit of a joke with regards to its durability, makes this thing very painful in quite a variety of situations. Add to this 1,900 hit points, little less than the Centurion, little more than the Leopard. It's inconsequential, really. However, one thing that is nice about this vehicle is that it has pretty good camo when it's moving. Just a little bit worse than the Leopard, but much better than the Centurion Action 10, means that this thing, it can play sneaky just like you can in a Leopard. So it's definitely a different vehicle to the Action 10 within that regard. But when we consider that pretty much everything is the same on this vehicle as the Action 10, apart from the horrendous armor, I really don't feel that getting a little bit of extra camo, a tiny little bit of gun handling, and a tiny bit of rate of fire, if you choose to lower your accuracy, is worth that huge loss in armor. Pretty much a third of the armor, unusable armor compared to the Centurion. Crew-wise, you'll be happy to know that this tank uses exactly the same loadout as the Centurion Action 10, so if you have a crew for that, they're going to do really well inside the Vickers. However, if you're a concept player, the crew isn't going to work nearly so well in this tank. Crew skills that I would focus on for your commander, really low pressure roll. Probably don't even need Brothers in Arms here, as in 0 skill Brothers in Arms, but you definitely need the skill Brothers in Arms. So take Brothers in Arms, take Recon, take Concealment. I wouldn't really bother with repairs until after concealment on this tank. It's more important to keep no armor hidden than it is to repair your tracks. And after you've got those 4, invest into something like Eagle Eye. For your gunner, I'd thoroughly recommend Brothers in Arms, concealment, skills like then repairs, Deadeye, designated target, snapshot. For your driver, Brothers in Arms, concealment, then repairs. Driver-wise, I would prioritize Brothers in Arms, concealment, repairs, then things like smooth ride, controlled impact, then prevent fires with preventative maintenance and firefighting. You don't really need off-road driving or clutch braking on this highly mobile tank. The loader is a crew member that I would thoroughly recommend having 0 skill Brothers in Arms, because this is a high pressure roll on this tank, at least until Wargaming do Crew 2.0 if they're ever going to do that. So I'll take Brothers in Arms, concealment, repairs. Then you definitely want to have intuition to make good use of all of the crew skills, and that's after you've taken situational awareness on this tank so you can have the view range that you require. Then probably something like safe stowage to avoid ammo racks, which this thing gets a lot of, adrenaline rush, then firefighting. You need a lot of crew skills on your radio operator loader. Equipment-wise on this tank, I'm going to be focusing on 2 builds. One is going to be turbo, vents, and a gun rammer. This will give me great firepower, and it will give me enough mobility to contest the early positions. And I think with the great engine power that this vehicle has, you want to contest those early positions. If you do have an experimental turbo on this tank, you might want to use it, because this thing really doesn't need the power to weight ratio, it just needs that top speed limit increase. And so a level 3 experimental turbo would be good. If you're spending $100, $150 on this tank and you find it's like your favorite vehicle, that might be a way to gain a little bit of an advantage. For my second build, I'm going for my full camo build here. Vents with a vision system and an exhaust. This is going to mean that I have all of the camo rating needed to play a sneaky role on this tank while being able to counter the enemy's concealment. I can get 32% camo while moving on this vehicle in that way. And considering how good of a sniper vehicle this is, if I can stay hidden while also stay spotting my opponents, oh, good news. And just to clarify, even without the coated optics here, you still get 476 meters view range. So I'd thoroughly recommend vents instead of coated optics for this build. So you can still get the improvement to your rate of fire, your accuracy, and all of the other things that Brothers in Arms does. Field mods wise, I would thoroughly recommend taking module durability on this vehicle. Next, focus on the accuracy. Then take the concealment value on this vehicle. Next, the penultimate field mod. This is a bit of a decision that you're going to have to make. Personally, for me, the vehicle is accurate enough already, and it has such good damage per minute that I want to focus on the reload time of this tank. I would go on the other British medium, the Concept. I would go the other way personally and take the accuracy because of the higher alpha damage and the terrible rate of fire. But this one, in my opinion, is all about dumping out rounds as quickly as you can and overwhelming your opponents with fire. And even with this nerf that I'm making to the accuracy, I can still get 0.24 at decent distances, and that is definitely a trade-off I'm willing to make to gain that 100 extra damage per minute. For the final field mod, I'm going to increase the engine power of this tank to make it ludicrously quick, but considering how good the power to weight is already, you could go the other way if you really want to increase your gun handling and you play more of a safer sniper role in this tank where you don't rush into positions. But anyway, I think that's quite enough jibber jabber. Let's get this new British beast rolling. All right, so first up, we're going to be rolling out on a nice matchup with only one artillery against some tier 8 tanks. In this kind of a scenario, I feel like I can be a little bit of a bully. With this tank, it's really tricky to decide about whether you want to try and contest those early positions, considering that you have no armor. It's only really your hit points that are going to keep you in it. And unlike a Centurion Action 10, where in some builds I like to use a durability device because I want to keep those tracks rolling, because I use my angled side armor to be able to bait my opponents into shooting my tracks and then get them back on and get them rolling towards the target. Yeah, on this vehicle, I can't really justify that. And I feel like I need the speed and the firepower to overwhelm my opponents. So we're trying to engage this Leopard on the move here, and you can see even without vert stabs, the gun handling on this tank, it feels really good. It does. Even with nerfing the aiming speed and the accuracy on this tank, it just claps. It really does, which allows you to invest into those other areas. However, again, you tailor the tank to your playstyle. If you're not the kind of person who wants to rush to the front constantly like me and to contest those early positions, then you could even go the other way and make this thing really just massive, insanely accurate, as well as also having better gun handling and still being very fast tank. But look at what we're doing here with our accuracy and our firepower advantage over this Leopard now. Although, when I say a firepower advantage, it is significant damage per minute and rate of fire. I can comfortably fire 2 times for every time he fires. But again, if he turns it into a 1-for-1 engagement, they're going to have the advantage with regards to alpha damage against me. And if that's not a good example of Vickers versus Leopard, I don't know what is. Although, maybe there was a degree of difference in, maybe he didn't know what the vehicle was, or alternatively, we played a couple games more World of Tanks than that Leopard. But yeah, satisfying start. And I feel like the games that I did enjoy in this tank were ones where I wasn't afraid to take that early position. Sniping in this tank is fun, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the vehicle's strength is aggressively contesting those early positions. It's fast like a Concept, but what a Concept does is it ambushes, right? It has that higher alpha damage, 430, and it doesn't have the damage per minute to be able to deal with its opponents. However, this tank, on the other hand, it definitely has the damage per minute to deal with its opponents. It's massive damage per minute that this tank gets. It's staggering damage per minute. And to have this kind of DPM, but also to have 390 alpha, is what makes the Centurion Action 10 feel so good. But again, remember that this vehicle has higher damage per minute than the Centurion Action 10 by 3%. I'd like to clarify for everyone that, as you can see, I'm using standard equipment in this review, so you get an idea of how the vehicle will actually perform. Quite a few people, well, not quite a few people, but a few people have been complaining that I have all of the crew skills for these reviews. I mean, come on, guys, cut me some slack here. I'm already putting in many hours. Like, for this vehicle, I've put in at least 5 hours of gameplay off stream under NDA just to be able to get this review. I'm not looking for sympathy here, but do you really want me to then go and have to like redo all of the individual crew skills, and because they come with all of them on the press account to be able to get like those 3 or 4 extra skills? I don't think once you've gone past 3 or 4 it really makes that much difference. It definitely does a little bit. If I get set on fire and the fire gets extinguished, that will definitely be a paid advantage or an advantage of the presser account. But please, I'm playing with standard equipment for all of you guys so you can get a better idea of how the vehicle plays. I'm sure that a lot of you who spend the $150 of currency on this tank are not going to use standard equipment on this vehicle. And yeah, I'm actually very much looking forward to using a Bond rammer with Bond vents or a bounty rammer with bounty vents on this thing, because this thing's rate of fire, it's nutty. Especially when you go down to being able to get the loader skill and get adrenaline rush on this tank. It is a terrifying tank. It kind of feels as if it's like an Object 140 within that regard, just with better alpha damage. And while the 140 will have the better rate of fire, this thing, just to have that 70 extra alpha, it feels so much more meaningful. You're going to notice in this game as well, I probably didn't highlight while I was trying to ask for at least some consideration as to why I'm not clicking 5 different skills on 4 different crew members with the resetting when I'm also trying to, when I'm putting in the extra time off stream, that the HE rounds on this vehicle are absolutely phenomenal. He says, as he actually doesn't manage to penetrate the standard B there and loses a lot, but the intuition switch out allows me to finish them off with a second shell. But no, look, genuinely, the HE shells on this tank, they're really sick. I'm going to HE switch here to the Borask, and boom, that's 493. And now suddenly I'm out trading them. And that 493 means that he's now a one-shot for me, whereas he wouldn't have been with the APCR. I'm switching out to the APCR. Luckily, the artillery helps me a little bit. I'm just trying to bait this Borask, see if they're going to go after me. But yeah, having like 480 alpha damage, as well as having 105 millimeters of HE pen, they are really nice. And I just wish this was a bit like the Centurion Action 10, where you carried so much ammunition that you had more than enough to be able to take all of the shells for all of the situations. I still feel like you have enough ammunition in this vehicle for 99.9% of your games. But yeah, you have to be just a little bit more careful with firing either some of your blind shots or just whipping in those heat or whipping in those HE. So luckily the SU-101 misses us. Artillery is spotted in the corner. I'm thinking about going for the SU, but we're going to use that final HE shell to make sure that we can take that vehicle out and only take 68 damage, one less than nice from the Lorraine 155-51. Intuition switch, the heat round there, can't quite manage to make it. And in the 6 minutes battle that we've had here, we picked up 4 kills. We've picked up pretty much 6k combined. Not sure if there was a blind fire or 5,800 if we're being pedantic, but maybe there's still going to be a little bit more for us, as this Cobra was last spotted on full hit points. And you know what, I just can't resist. You know what, even after like 10 years of playing World of Tanks, I mean, am I really a gamer if I don't try and do this? I gotta try and time it though, right? I gotta try and time it. Okay, where's my timing? Here's my timing. Hopefully I'll fire at the same time, but I don't actually manage to fire. I still managed to do 590 damage to the Cobra on top. But I think I probably could have played a little bit more sensibly. But it looks like he was saving his last shell for me, as we can see. And now, very bravely, the Cobra is going to... I thought he was going to try and drown himself, but I think he was just trying to get safe. So there you have it. That was the Vickers tearing through a Tier 8 matchup. 4 kills, 6,400 combined that we saw. And this shows you that this thing, it's fast. Not super fast to be able to get into position, which is why I like to use a turbo on this tank. And it's just furious. It really is. You just don't depend on its armor. Depend on its hit points. Depend on its gun handling. Outshoot your opponents. And don't out-tank them. And it can be an okay vehicle. All right, round 2. Tier 10 tanks, 2 artillery, playing on airfield. And there's only one kind of position that I want to take on this vehicle. But again, I'd like to highlight just how important the top speed limit on this tank is for being able to contest these early positions. You want to have as good turbo as you can on this tank, because the difference between 55 and 60 for being able to contest these positions can quite often be the difference between actually getting there with some hit points or not. I've really noticed on my free-to-play account that the lack of premium consumable quite often means that I can't sacrifice view range on the versatile mediums to take the extra top speed. And really, the difference of 2 or 3 kilometers an hour is quite often the difference between you being able to get into the position successfully or not. And there's nothing more tilting than for me, than on my free-to-play account, than dying or not being able to rush into a position purely because I'm not paying to have the premium consumable and because I want to have the extra view range instead of actually having the top speed on a vehicle like the Centurion Action 10. Luckily, this vehicle doesn't have to really worry about that, but if you are a player who uses premium consumables, nice shot there, E100. I guess I was too predictable with my play. I wasn't spotted when he fired, so nice blind shot, mate. If you are somebody who uses a premium consumable on the Centurion Action 10, then this vehicle is going to end up being probably just a little bit slower. I know it had the same ground resistances for a better power to weight, but the Centurion will be able to go 2 kilometers an hour faster into position. But then this one's going to be so much more sneaky, right? It's got like about 10% relative better camo rating, like about 1.5% absolute when moving. But remember, that scales with all of your other skills. So this thing is able to sneak into position sometimes that a tank like the Action 10 definitely couldn't. Okay, so right now it's about trying to figure out how these people like to blind fire. And usually, when people blind fire, they blind fire 3 seconds after your Sixth Sense goes off. Well, 3 seconds after you've been spotted. Or you've spotted them. It's probably the better way for me to say it. Usually it's vice versa, right? Well, actually not in this case because I'm using the bushes. So 3 seconds after you spot them, their Sixth Sense goes off. So what you do is you go out, you spot them, their Sixth Sense goes off, but this guy isn't interested. Or now he is. Yeah, I'm not interested in that. Is he going to blind fire me now? So you go out, you spot them, 3 seconds later their Sixth Sense goes off, and then after you've pulled back to wait for them to blind fire, then you go out and you shoot them. That is the ticket to this position. It's the ticket to a lot of spotting place against pre-aimed heavy tanks in scenarios like that. Alright, so this tank, have I missed a shot so far? I mean, I haven't penned a few shells, but I really want to highlight just how accurate this vehicle is. It does feel phenomenal with that regard. Okay, so I decided I want to go after this Grilla. This is the perfect kind of scenario to really show these HE rounds and to show this damage per minute. And I heard the Grilla fire. I think that means that I can fire at least once, if not twice at him now. Unfortunately, the Lion hits me. I have to use my med kit, so I'm going to adjust my angle here because I know I've got the rate of fire on the Grilla. And by adjusting my angle here, that means that I'm not going to get shot by the Lion in the side of the turret, or maybe even in the weak point on top of this thing. No, he did get me just in the top of the turret. Unfortunately, there's an auto-loading French self-propelled gun that's all the way at the back of the map. And I'm just hoping that my team are going to deal with this Grilla, because if they deal with this Grilla, then I'm going to have the extra angle. But I have to admit, just being able to pull in what should have been 1,440 damage there, just like that against the Grilla with the HE was pretty cool. And I decided I'm just going to go out and try and tap them, because I think after they take an artillery shell, their brain might be a little bit frustrated. And luckily, we reacted before the Grilla there. Although results may vary about driving around the corner against a very accurate high shell velocity tank destroyer. But I decided I really wanted to get rid of him, because the longer I stay here, the more chance there is that the artillery might focus on us. And if the artillery focuses on us, yeah, I would quickly, once again, remember just how bad this thing's armor is. 30 on the side of the hull, 40 on the side of the turret. This thing is going to be a very, very, very juicy target for all of the players out there who want to play the FV4005, and all of the players out there who want to play artillery. So I expect on the release day, on that Thursday, if you want to try and 3-mark your FV4005, might be a good time. If you want to try and mark some artillery, might be a good time as well, as I do expect there'll be about 80,000 Vickers tanks going in when they all get sent out to all of the players. At least on the EU server. I think it's like 80,000 will be available. And I can imagine what 80,000 new owners of Vickers are going to do. It's going to be a very annoying time to play light tanks, I tell you, with the HE rounds on this vehicle and the accurate guns that these vehicles have. I wouldn't want to be some fast-moving vehicle. And you know what? Hopefully you'll get a few silly sausages that drive out in front of you. Oh, an unusual miss there in the Vickers, in the FV4005. But also, it'll be a double-edged sword trying to play FV4005s when these vehicles get released into the matchmaker, because while you're going to be able to pen them and nearly one-shot them, you're probably going to end them the majority of times on about 100, 150 hit points. 7 times out of 10, you're not going to roll high enough to be able to one-shot them, right? And then you've got to deal with the fact that they're firing every, like, 6 seconds at you with 480 alpha damage. So they're going to shoot you like 3-4 times. They're literally going to be able to remove you from the game for every time they manage to fire at them in the FE405. So be careful with that. Okay, so we won the north. I think it was a really good impact into this battle. We just controlled the northern position to stop our opponents from having that angle against our team, which allows our team to be able to push through. That allows us now to be able to advance with all of the heavies, the heavy tank destroyers, like the Jagdpanzer and the Minotaur, to hopefully be able to carve up some opponents at the end of this game. And this is where this tank does feel good. It's fast, not quite as fast as a Leopard for chasing down tanks, but yeah, decent HE rounds, boom baby, quick, gun handling, great aim time, fabulous accuracy. It really is a legendary gun. I'd say it's probably, would I say it's the best medium gun in the game now? It's close. I think probably yes. I'd say this is the new best gun on a medium tank in the game, but only by like 1%. Only by like 1%. Wow. Talk about cleaning out the trash. He actually does some damage to me with his wreck at the end of the game. So I'd say it's the new best medium tank gun in the game. I can't think of a vehicle which has a better one. Maybe the K91. But I feel like the K91 is so frustrating with 320 alpha. I feel like this gun, for me, is really a sweet spot. It does feel better than the Leopard personally. Of course, the Leopard has the premium APCR rounds, which are nice until you need to go through more than 70 degrees of angled armor. And of course, the Leopard has that better alpha damage. But to be able to gain the rate of fire advantage that this vehicle has and have access to heat, which doesn't lose any penetration over distance, as well as also being able to go through up to 85 degrees of angled armor, I'd say this is the new best gun on a medium tank in the game. Now I want to highlight that this vehicle can be very sneaky as well and do cheeky things that only the higher camo medium tanks in the game could really hope to do. So I'm going to be taking vision system and an exhaust on my Vickers here. And remember, with 410 meters base view range, a lot like the Centurion Action 10 and the Leopard have, the lack of coated optics is not going to hold me back in the slightest, and it's just going to give me advantages in other areas. Although I like to highlight that without the turbo, this thing doesn't feel quite so nippy, does it? So an EBR coming up north. Are we going to be able to hit our HE shell in there? Yeah, but magic armor, I guess. Nah, I mean, look, I don't dig into the whole tinfoil hattery of the magic armor on the EBR. You either hit the wheels and you miss the armor, or you don't, right? And I must have either hit his gun or hit the wheels there. Unfortunately, the result is the same for me, and that's one healthy EBR and not me. Look at that gun handling. It's beautiful, 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 beautiful. And while sacrificing the gun rammer and the turbo here, stop that vehicle's early rush positions to be able to get in. Look at what we're going to do now. Yeah, I feel confident enough with my camo through all of these bush lines to be able to do what my team aren't doing, which is shooting the tank that I'm spotting out in the open. Although, you know what, he did react to it fairly well. Within 5 seconds, he managed to get out of the way. But is it really going to matter when... Boom, baby. 496. Looks like our artillery penetrated a shell on the Griller there. And that is one unhappy German tank destroyer with the same base accuracy that this vehicle has. Although in the Griller, I'd probably take the 5% accuracy at the expense of the rate of fire. On this tank, I'm obviously going the other way. So in actuality, the vehicles kind of get like a 10% relative difference in their accuracy if you go either way with your field mods. But again, it's down to you as a user. So right now, it's just beautiful intuition switch timing, trying to find the tanks, hoping I'm going to find an FE405. Find the FE405, don't get spotted. Again, nobody's really shooting him, so I'm going to try and harass the FE405 as well. And you know what, I don't like to leave dangerous tanks like this that can one-shot me alive in this game. So I'm going to go straight after them, use the great engine power, and oh dear dude, it ain't going to work out for you. Hopefully I'm going to min-max by switching out to AP here. Yeah, I actually did. And considering that I played this tank for many hours to be able to cherry pick the best games, no, I really wanted to have a good idea of this vehicle so I can come up with the best conclusion that I can for you today. And saving that HE shell means nothing because it doesn't high roll and we leave the GWE 100 alive. So min-maxing for what purpose? No purpose. Finish off then, pick up our third kill. We have a T110E5 coming after us now. So I've got to decide, do I go up the hill and go after the EBR, or do I turn around and try and deal with the T110E5? And that's a tricky scenario. Luckily, he doesn't spot us there, maybe because of the exhaust that we're packing. And so I think this is a great opportunity to show off this amazing engine power. Look at this 33 up slope because of that final field mod that we took, making this ridiculously quick, even quicker than the Action 10. And we clutch shot the EBR. Unfortunately, no more HE to be able to deal with him. He shoots us once, but I don't think he realizes how good our rate of fire is. Even without the gun rammer, we shut him down like a scrub lord. The E5 unfortunately catches my bottom. But I'm thinking, it's easy now. I'm above. I didn't think about the concept. Rip. What do I do? I might as well just get one more shot into the concept before I die. And man, can you imagine if the E5 wasn't behind us with that rate of fire? Being able to out-trade tanks like the concept feels pretty sick. So hopefully this shows you, as it goes into the kill shot, just what this vehicle is capable of doing with regards to being how sneaky it is. It's got really good camo, unlike the Centurion Action 10, and that with an exhaust allows you to put yourself in perilous situations and quite often come out on top. And while we managed to get 5,000 combined here, and the funny thing is that we didn't, even though we took our scouting build, we didn't actually get that much assistance damage. I think a lot of our team was napping. The exhaust and the vision system allowed us to make shots for ourselves that we otherwise couldn't do if we were not taking the exhaust and the vision system, which is why I love that build so much, and why when I put that on many of my medium tanks, I ended up 3-marking all of them apart from, what medium tanks haven't I done yet? The concept, I'm waiting for that one to be buffed. The Bat Chat, I'm waiting for that one to be buffed. And a new challenger arises with the Vickers 3. So remember that if you buy this thing quick enough at 5 o'clock UTC this Thursday on the European server, and you better do it in the first couple of minutes, because most likely the styles will sell out in that time, then you're going to be able to get yourself a funky style on the Vickers Mark III. So I thought I'd just show you what it looks like. So we've got a little bit of hatching on the front, another extra scouty thing on top of the vehicle, some barrels on the back that I don't think were there. You're going to get your number on the barrel, if that's what you're into. Honestly, it doesn't look bad, but I don't think it looks nearly as cool as the Object 452K did. The styles don't even really look that special on this tank. And I think, honestly, you could probably make it a little bit more fun by just putting some emojis on it or something, or putting your favorite style on it. Although this will probably be the only chance you get to get a 3D style on it. So look, if you're getting it for the same price, you might as well get the free style for being there as it's released on Thursday at 5 o'clock UTC on the European server. And check the wargaming.com and wargaming.asia website for when will be the local time for those two servers, as Wargaming haven't told me so far. So all in all, the Vickers. A lot of you might look at this review and think that I really like this tank. Actually, I really don't. I don't think it's a very good vehicle. The lack of armor means that while the vehicle can do well, when it gets that lovely opportunity to be able to out-trade its opponents, or as we saw in the last game in this video, be able to out-sneak its opponents. For every time you have a situation like that, you're just losing so many hit points, and especially against tier 8 and tier 9 tanks, you just don't have the armor like on the Centurion Action 10 to be the assault medium tank or the versatile medium tank to be able to dig out your all of your adversaries. I think it's a mediocre medium tank at best for being able to impact the game. I don't think it's going to be a very strong vehicle. I think that a lot of players will struggle with the vehicle's characteristics at the start, and while it does have one extra degree of gun depression than the Leopard, it has less camo, less top speed, less alpha damage, and not so convenient, just load the gold and spam APCR rounds. You're actually going to have to think about where you shoot your opponents with heat, but for people who are knowledgeable, it will be an advantage compared to the APCR. All in all, I think this thing is going to end up getting one of the lower win rates at tier 10 medium. And honestly, I think that Wargaming just haven't really done enough to differentiate this vehicle between the Centurion Action 10. You're getting 99% the same gun with a tiny little better performance on the gun handling, this pretty much 99% the same mobility, but you're getting like a third of the armor, or you might as well be getting no armor, because this armor is completely useless for like a 10% or a 20% relative camo advantage. It's totally not worth it from being competitive inside the game. And while sure, this gun feels special, it doesn't feel different enough from the Leopard, in my opinion, to warrant the $100 to $150 price tag. This vehicle, in my humble opinion, is going to be one for the collectors. I would thoroughly recommend that instead, if you want to have legendary gun handling and have something that's just different from the Leopard, just go get the M60. And while you are going to have horrendous camo rating in the M60 that you're going to have to try and work around by making sure that you're not getting spotted and not putting yourself in positions where you will end up getting spotted, at least on the M60, you're getting 350 heat pen, which allows you to do some ludicrous things. I think that the Vickers 3, it's a C-grade tank, if not a D-grade tank, with how competitive it's going to be. And with regard to its novelty and how different it is, I really think that Wargaming could have done a little bit more. I just don't think it's different enough. This tank review today, I had good games, but I would have had those good games in the Leopard. I would have had those good games in the Centurion. Just don't think that this vehicle is different enough to warrant you coughing up your $100 or your $150 worth of currency. However, for all of you tank collectors out there who have nothing left to spend your free experience on, or you've got nothing left to spend your bonds on, and you don't want to buy bond equipment for your favorite vehicles, then you're probably going to get this one anyway. And you'll have fun moments where it does definitely feel nice to play, but I think you're going to be quite shocked with how you end up with your average damage and your win ratio if you're somebody who cares about your statistics. And so I do expect that this vehicle is going to have very poor performance all in all for its impact in the game. But just like with Wargaming and how much they hate that the Leopard is super popular, even though it's not actually the most competitive of vehicles, there is a very large number of players who just like to sit on the mid-ridge and just snipe at things, and they feel good when they have a nice gun. And this is a very nice gun. It's one of the best, if not the best, medium guns in the game. And so for all of you out there who aren't so interested in just rushing forwards, involving yourself in the game, winning the battle, but you just want to chill and have kind of like a detox gun to just shoot some tanks, because that feels good, right? Then maybe this one will be the one for you. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was my extensive look at the new Vickers 3. Really hope you enjoyed this video and it was useful for you. If it was, please give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the Vickers 3. Do you think it looks like an incredible tank? Do you think it looks like a trash tank? Do you think it looks different enough from the Action 10 and the Leopard to warrant you dumping $100, $150 worth of currency into it? Or is this going to be the first assembly shop tank that you're not interested in the slightest? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.